Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you as always for taking time out of your very hectic schedules to spend some time on this call. Hopefully you'll find it very useful, and as always, the value and the quality of these calls is much better with the more you participate in those calls. So I welcome everybody to share your thoughts and your ideas and your insights with the group so that we can all learn together. I do have a little bit that I'm going to present today, but I'm hoping that that will inspire some good conversation once I go through some of the material. Looks like, was that you, John, that just joined?
Yes.
Welcome. All right, so I'm showing the agenda for those that are online. If you're not online today, it's not that big of a deal. I do have some slides that I'll be working through, but don't feel like you're missing out on anything. We'll cover everything in the discussion. As always, with the recording, I'll post that online. So if you do want to go back and look at the slides, you'll have access to those as well. All right, so as we get started, we're going to do our standard 60-second introductions. I appreciate everybody sharing your name, your territory, and your tenure with TAB. And then just briefly, what is your strategy for overcoming the call me after the new year objection that we often hear this time of the year? So if you've got anything specific that you found to be helpful in keeping people engaged even before the new year turns over, it'd be great to share that. So we'll just go around the room. I'll call out your name, and if you can go through name, territory, tenure, and how do you handle that objection. And we'll start with, how about Andy? He's new to the group, new to the call, so we'll put him on the spot first and let him introduce himself to everybody.
Hi there, gang. My name's Andy McCormick. I am managing partner in TAB Vineland here in Ontario, Canada. Vineland is our grape growing and wine district that runs from Hamilton down to Niagara Falls area. Been a TAB business owner for four years now, and well, looking to learn quite a bit through these calls, I think. Strategy for, well, I saw the question on the email and I thought, oh, I hate those questions. But I was trying to catch up a little bit. I was reading this book, The Speed of Trust, which looks like you've been using, and I thought maybe that one strategy might be to be intentional about the call. I got to that, I managed to get through about a third of the book last night, and read that section on being intentional. I thought, you know, that might be a good way of presenting, just saying, you know, the reason for my calling is to share something that I believe will be valuable for you. I'm looking for 15 minutes of your time, and whether you do it now or whether you do it in the new year, it's not very long, and I believe you'll benefit from it, or something to that effect.
Excellent, Andy. I think that's fantastic, and thank you for the plug on the Speed of Trust. I appreciate that. All right, how about we'll go to Chris Lipper.
Okay, I'm in North Central New Jersey. I've been around TAB for 20 years because originally I was a member, and I've been a TBO, you would know better than me, 7-8 years, something like that. And if somebody said to me, well, can you call me after the new year? And I would say something along the lines of, sure, whatever you want. I'm busy too. I get that. But let me just ask, how'd your year start last year? Are you happy with how everything is now? You know, New Year's might be too late to sit down.
Excellent. I really love that point. New Year's might be too late. That's excellent. Thanks, Chris.
I don't review the years in January. I figure let's do it in December to get everybody ready for January so we don't miss a month.
Exactly. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thanks very much, Chris.
Yep.
Valerie.
Valerie Koenig, Director of TAB Hawaii. I've been a TBO for 5 years, almost exactly. and I don't want any more work before the new year. I can't take any more. And not another thing, all of a sudden my consultancy is just like it always does. It's always come at once. So, and I've just done a couple of workshops that I'm following up on and getting some work from. So I'm blasted. So I'm not really looking for anything else for the new year.
So your response?
My response would be, the new year would be a really good time for us to get together. I think January sounds great. But no, if I actually did have some hot prospects on my and I do have one or two, I might try to get them in before then. And those are good tips from both gentlemen before me.
Awesome. And I think you highlight something really important, Valerie. Sometimes it actually works better for all parties to just go ahead and schedule something in the future. I would encourage you, though, if you can, even if they want to wait till after the first of the year, see if you can get something on the calendar. Never hurts to ask.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed. Yep.
All right. How about John? Hello, John. All right, we'll come back to John. How about David?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. I'm driving in my car, so it's a little always hit and miss sometimes. So, David Krish, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, which is kind of the western side of South Carolina. And I've been TBO for 6 years now. And I think, the suggestion that isn't now a good time to be planning for your business. What are you doing about that for your business right now? And because our boards are in that process, and it might be a good time to at least talk about it. Can we get together and I can share some insight as to what we're hearing about?
Sure, absolutely. Yep, very good. Thanks, David. How about you, Mary?
Okay, Mary Polsley Williams, and our territory is the Washington, D.C. metro area. We bought our franchise in 2009 and launched in January and February of 2010. And call me after the New Year objection. Well, one of the things that you talked about earlier was you don't have a plan. So now would be a really good time to start on your plan, so when January rolls around, we can start implementing it.
Very good. Yep, excellent. How about you, Carlos?
Yes, my name is Carlos. I've been TBO for 10, 11 months. I have a territory in Mexico, in the central part of Mexico. The name of my state is Aguascalientes. And in regards to this, call me after the new year, I don't know, I think I will dig a little bit more into the objections, which most of the times I think it's time. But one thing that I will tell them is something along the lines of, I'd like to have a conversation with you around why it is important for us to begin working with our members before the year comes to an end. And I would like to tell you why that's critical. Can we have another conversation? Can we have the conversation?
Yep. Excellent. Very good, Carlos. I think that's great. Highlighting the value of getting started now. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's circle back and see if John is able to connect with us. Are you out there, John?
Yes. Sorry about that. John Crandall. I've got TAB North Texas. It's the North Dallas area, and I've been in a TBO since May of this year. And for that objection, just telling people that, we work with a number of business owners, and what we find is the people that start the year with a plan, the earlier they do it, the more success they have. Because setting a goal makes you much more likely to achieve a goal. So before the year starts is the optimal time to reset your mind about what you're going to do for the next year that's coming up. And so let's talk now so we can get that in place.
Very good. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for going through that and sharing your insights and ideas. I heard some great strategies for overcoming that objection, just really highlighting the value of starting now as opposed to waiting. And remember, this kind of came up yesterday during the owner-to-owner call, Sprint. You know, when we're talking to them on the telephone and they don't know a lot about us at this point, and we're just asking for a meeting, and they say, hey, can we do this after the first of the year? That's when you need to step up and give them enough information to help them see why meeting now is important. And, you know, those business owners that see the value of planning and being prepared for the new year will set aside time. And those that just don't see that or don't have a process for doing planning and they're just kind of going by the seat of their pants, those are the ones that will probably put you off even more. So just highlight those needs, make sure that they understand the value that you're bringing now, and I think you'll find some success as you take on that objection. Very good. All right. So now we're going to go forward and we're going to talk a little bit. We've got a total of 7 on the line, so hopefully we'll be able to share some wins, or if you've got any challenges you're facing in your business that you'd like to get some feedback on, this is a great time to do that. So any wins in your business or any challenges you'd like to discuss with your peers?
Ben, Mary, I have a win, 2 wins actually.
Let's hear them.
We just signed 2. These are people who are already TAB members. We're doing their strategic planning for them, for their group, for their senior managers and them. And so that's $2,500 for each one of those day sessions.
Awesome. That is excellent. That to me, that's a demonstration of trust, and that you've really established a really solid relationship with them, and they trust you to work with their team at a deeper level. That's awesome. Any questions for Mary on how they were able to get that additional business, or any follow-up?
Yes, one question. So what I assume is that you were working just with the owner, and now you're extending your, you're reaching the whole team now, right? Is that's what I do?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct for a 1-day session with the whole team. But there are actually, in one of these businesses, I see where a couple of the managers need help. So, you know, already we do for some of our other members coaching for the second in command or the manager. So I see that as an opportunity after the strategic planning session.
Oh, that's great. Great. And you are following the protocol, the business, the blueprint, let's say.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
And I think, Mary, you just highlighted another really valuable thing is we build relationships with business owners, and then they give us an opportunity to step into their team. That's just introducing a whole new set of possibilities and the level of involvement that we can have in that company to coach other leaders in the organization or some of the managers that might be developing as future leaders. So I think that's excellent and very exciting. All right, good job. Any other wins or challenges that anybody would like to share? All right. Well, thanks, Mary, for sharing. And again, congratulations on adding that business, adding that additional opportunity to your business.
Thank you.
All right. So Andy actually highlighted the topic for today, and it's a continuation from last week. So those that weren't able to connect last week, we're just going to kind of retouch on a couple of keys as we dig into the speed of trust concept. It is a great book. It produced by Franklin Covey, Publishing. It's the product of Stephen Covey's, one of his sons, Stephen M.R. Covey, developed this tool and is now broadly used to help organizations understand the value of operating in a high trust environment. So the basis for the speed of trust is that in organizations, trust is a result of speed and cost. And what that really means is that as trust increases, the speed at which business is able to be done typically increases, meaning I can make decisions faster, my team operates in a higher communication environment, and there's not as much hidden agenda and other negative behavior slowing things down. And as business moves faster, typically costs are reduced because we're able to execute faster in what we're doing. So as trust increases, speed increases and costs typically decrease. And the converse is true. As trust decreases, if you're operating in a low trust environment, we typically find that the speed that we make decisions and operational efficiency decrease, which results in an increase in cost. So there's an inverse relationship between speed and cost as trust either goes up or goes down within an organization. The simplest way to really think about trust in an organization or in a relationship is to think of it as a bank account or a trust account. Much like with an account at your bank, if you want to increase the value of that account, you make deposits. In a trust account, you take action to build trust, which adds or creates a deposit or a positive effect on that trust account, and the account grows. If you spend too much, you'll notice that you're making a lot of withdrawals out of your bank account, and the value of that account will go down based on the amount of withdrawals that you make. Same thing in a trust account. If you do things that erode trust or bring trust down, you'll see that the value or the level of trust that you have in the organization or in the relationship declines, and you'll see things begin to slow down as the account diminishes. What we don't want to do is we don't ever want to see that account balance hit zero, because that's when trust is broken. The account, it becomes bankrupt, and we're unable to take action in a way that's trusting. So as you think about this with your members, one of the 4 disciplines of engagement is to be a trusted advisor. And the only way that we can do that in that relationship is to make sure that we're consistently making deposits and building, based on positive behavior and trust behavior to increase the trust that we have with that member, and avoid making withdrawals and doing things that break trust. That can be a breach of confidence. That can be, not following through on a commitment. There's lots of ways that we can break trust. So we want to avoid those behaviors so that we can keep the balance of that trust account positive with that member. So as we move forward in the discussion of the speed of trust, the next part that we're going to review are kind of the foundations for how this system works. We're going to talk about the hidden variable. We're going to talk about the 5 ways of trust, the 4 cores of credibility, and the 13 behaviors. And remember that today is just an introduction to these. The plan next week is to talk about how these work together and things that we can actually do that impact the trust that we have in an organization or that we have in a relationship, a key relationship. So some of you might recognize this type of formula. It's the results formula that we have here at TAB that focuses on activity and skill set. We say that activity and skill set combined produce results, and mindset is the multiplier of the impact of that activity and the skill set. So this is another take on the same type of formula. This one says that strategy times execution equals results. The hidden variable in that equation is trust. So the level of trust in which an organization operates has a multiplicative effect on the strategy and execution that organization has. So you can have a great strategy and you can be executing that strategy, but if it's a low trust organization, you're going to move slower. Execution's not going to be as efficient and effective. There's going to be a lot of rework typically, and the strategy is not going to be very well defined. In a high trust organization where we operate trusting that others have the best interests at heart of the organization. We're going to trust their execution. We're going to be quick in making and setting strategy that's effective and establishing the action plans to get things done. So trust is the hidden variable in that business formula of strategy and execution equals results. Whether it's high or low, trust, it affects overall organizational effectiveness and success. All right, so that's the hidden variable. Now we're going to talk about the 5 waves of trust. And I know this is quick, but again, this is just an overview, and I do have a document that I'll be distributing to everybody in the program that kind of highlights what we're going over today. So the 5 waves represent the different levels or contexts in which we establish trust. It also forms the structure for understanding and making trust actionable. So it's great to have good concepts around soft topics like trust, but unless we're able to take direct action to affect it, it's just a nice discussion. So we're really going to talk about actions that we can take that directly impact the level of trust we have in an organization or in a relationship. So the 5 waves start with, and it's based on the ripple effect. At the center of that ripple is the first wave, or self-trust. And self-trust is simply the whether we have credibility and integrity within ourselves. Pretty self-explanatory, but absolutely critical, and as I said, kind of the first wave of how we operate. The second wave is relationship trust. So as we move out, the level of trust that we have for self affects the level of trust that we're able to establish with others. And so the ability to build relational trust hinges on our ability to have good integrity and good integrity in the way that we operate in that relationship. The third wave is organizational trust. And so now we start to move away from the one-to-one, and we start to look at more of a stakeholder or an outsider's impact with trust. And so what we find is that most organizations that operate in a low trust environment, you're going to see people who are manipulative, whether it's facts and information or hidden agendas, or they're withholding information, or they're resistant to new ideas, or covering up mistakes. So in a low trust organization, the self-trust, the way that I operate with integrity or not, and the way that I interact with my peers or my subordinates or with those that I report to impacts the organizational effectiveness. And in a high trust organization, we're going to see people who are transparent and have the best interests of the team at heart more than themselves, who are clear and honest in the information that they're providing, and making sure that those that need to know are communicated with. And the fourth wave is market trust, and market trust is really all about the brand or the reputation of the organization. It's all about the feeling that you have that makes you want to buy products or services or invest your money or time in a particular company. So as we move out, the brand itself has an impact on how people view us within the brand. So think about this as your marketing tab in your community, the way that you operate your franchise, the way that you interact with your members, the quality of the boards that you hold, all as a reflection on the brand. And the brand of TAB is a reflection on you. And then finally, the fifth wave is the societal trust wave. And that's really the overriding principle of, what a high societal trust will contribute. The intent is to create value instead of destroy it, or to give back instead of to take. So this is an organization, a high trust organization, that would be very involved in benefiting the community that they're working in, as opposed to one that doesn't operate in a way that supports the community but is very organizationally focused, very disconnected from the community that they serve. So within those 5 waves, each of the cores of credibility function and establish whether we're high trust or low trust. And so the speed of trust has a model that they use. It's a tree that shows the root system as well as what's above the ground. And the thought is that Character is basically the root, and competency is what we all see, or the tree above the ground. So the character traits are integrity and intent. So the more we operate with integrity, that's our underlying principles and morals, and how consistently we live out those morals and principles is our integrity. And the intent, or the way that we whether we're bringing benefit or harm to those that we interact with, are all character-related cores. Competency is really, our capabilities, or how competent we might be, and the results that we produce. Ultimately, results are the driver. If we are unable to produce positive results, it's almost irrelevant whether or not we have the capability. Many people, the easiest example for me here in Denver, Colorado, is to look at our struggling Denver Broncos, and many of the players that we've drafted over the years might have great capabilities. They might be fantastic athletes, but they're not able to deliver the results needed to enhance the overall effectiveness of the team. And so the competency of those members are based on their capability along with their results. And while you might be capable, if you're not delivering results, then your capabilities are less effective or less meaningful. However, we do see those that are able to deliver great results and might not be fully capable. And so, again, that goes back to their overall competency. We might be able to develop somebody's capabilities as long as they're continuing to deliver results. So the 4 cores are based on character and competency. The character cores are integrity and intent, and the competency cores are capabilities and results. And then this flows forward to the behaviors, the trust behaviors that will either build trust or erode trust. And so the graphic that you see, as we look at integrity, intent, capabilities, and results, the character cores and the competency cores, there are 5 character behaviors that support integrity and intent. There are 4 competency behaviors that support capabilities and results, and there are 4 behaviors that support both character and competency. And so it's learning how to operate with these behaviors consistently so that you're regularly making deposits into the trust account in each relationship and in the organization overall. So I'm going to go very, very quickly over what each of these behaviors represent. And as I said, I've got a handout that I'm going to send to everybody that provides a little more detail behind each of these. So we're going to start with the character behaviors. Behavior number 1 is talk straight. It's simply say what you mean and mean what you say. There should be no manipulative language. There should be no hidden meanings, and nothing like that. Just say what you mean and be honest and truthful in what you're saying. The opposite behavior would be to lie or be deceitful intentionally. And the counterfeit behavior, or people who make it look like they're talking straight but actually aren't, are those that spin information or that position or posture information to make themselves look better. People who tend to be a little manipulative in the way that they provide information. So really, talk straight, be honest, tell the truth, and let people know where you stand. Behavior number 2 is to demonstrate respect. Demonstrating respect is all about caring for others and showing it. Treat everyone with respect, especially those who can't do anything for you. And I think that's the key. A lot of times we treat people with respect because they have something that we can benefit from, whether it's position or power. But really demonstrating respect is even showing respect to those who can't do anything for you. The opposite behavior is to be disrespectful or to not care about others. And then the counterfeit behavior would be to fake respect, to feign it, to act like you're respectful when really there's no true respect behind it. Showing respect for some, but not for all. The third character behavior is to create transparency. And this is, again, it's a truth-oriented concept, but it's telling the truth, be genuine, be real, be open and authentic. It's really about telling the truth in a way that can be verified. So we want to make sure that the information that we're sharing, the stats or data that we're providing can be verified and validated to be truthful. The counterfeit behavior for that is to have hidden agendas or to withhold information. So sometimes we'll seem like we're being transparent, but we're not telling the whole story. We're only giving that information that benefits us. And the opposite behavior would simply be to hide or to cover up or to obscure the truth or information. Behavior number 4 is to right wrongs. This is one of my favorites. I have to do this, unfortunately, quite a bit because I tend to mess up a little bit here and there. But really, righting wrongs is about admitting when you're wrong, to apologize quickly, to show humility, and to not let your pride get in the way of doing the right thing. And I think the key with righting wrongs is the apology is important, but take action. Do something to right that wrong. Do something intentional to compensate or to make up for the wrong that was committed. The opposite behavior is to deny or justify or rationalize wrongful behavior. So I can tell you all of the great reasons I have for doing the wrong thing, and that's not really very helpful, and it's really just being defensive and not accepting responsibility for my own mistake. The counterfeit is to cover up or disguise or to hide mistakes until you're forced to admit that error. I've experienced this myself with firsthand with my children. Sometimes they'll do things and you ask them if they did something wrong, and no, I didn't do it, until you provide enough evidence that they know that they did that, and then they'll come clean. So that's a great example of not righting wrongs. If you make a mistake, mistakes are okay. Learn from it, move forward, and make up for it, and take action to resolve it. The 5th behavior is to show loyalty. This is really about giving credit to others, to speak about people as if they were present and represent others who aren't there. I really like that one about speaking about people as if they were present. If you tend to be the kind of person who you're nice to my face, but then we hang up the phone and you tell everybody what a knucklehead I am, that's not really very loyal. It's not demonstrating respect. It kind of flows into the others. So just make sure that when you're talking about somebody, it would be the same conversation if they were standing there with you. And the other part of that is giving credit where it's due, especially in your member relationships. As your members accomplish certain things, make sure that they're celebrating those successes. But one mistake that I have seen, not necessarily with anybody on this call, but just in general with business coaches, is we tend to take more credit for the work that our members do than we should and we deserve. We do have a role, but they're the ones who did the work and they're the ones who accomplish it. So make sure when you're celebrating their successes that you're really giving them the credit for the work that they've done. The counterfeit is to take credit or to betray somebody's trust. And the opposite behavior, or the counterfeit behavior would be to be gossipy or two-faced, to appear to give credit when they're present, but then downplaying their contributions or taking credit when they leave. Obviously, that's not really showing very good loyalty to that person. So those are all character behaviors that demonstrate your integrity and your intent in the relationship. So be sure that as you're thinking about how you operate in the relationship, that you're being true to your character and that you're consistently doing things to make those deposits from a character perspective. The competency behaviors, the 4 competency-based behaviors, begin with just simply delivering results. So to deliver results is to establish a track record of getting the right things done, to make things happen on time and within budget. And of course, one of everybody's favorite quotes comes from Yoda himself, and that is, "Do or do not, there is no try." So it's all about making sure that you're delivering on your commitments, and that you're establishing a track record. I love that, a track record of getting things done the right way and the first time. The opposite behavior would be to overpromise and underdeliver, and I think this comes and could be really a challenge in our sales conversations. I think sometimes we tend to fall into this category of overpromising to our prospective members what benefits they'll receive instead of keeping it within a proper context. The counterfeit behavior is delivering activity instead of results. I've seen this a lot, especially in my government career, where you see a lot of people who seem very busy, but what are they actually accomplishing, or how are they actually benefiting the organization? But they're doing busy work without really accomplishing any real progress or real work. So make sure that as you're working with your members that you're helping them focus on the right activities. If you make commitments, keep those commitments and get back to them and deliver the results that you're promising. Competency behavior number 2 is to get better, and this is about continuous improvement. It's about increasing your own capabilities. To be a constant and lifelong learner, don't consider yourself above feedback. I love that one. I welcome feedback from each of you, as well as my peers here in the organization and those that I report to. I love to get feedback. It's not always comfortable. I don't always like what I hear, but I do learn from it, and I find that I'm more likely to get better if I get that good, honest feedback. The opposite behavior is to rest on your laurels or become irrelevant. So, we've all had successful careers. Most of us have had successful experiences as a TBO in coaching and facilitating boards. It's really easy to rest on those successes and not really drive for continued growth. So that's the opposite behavior. The counterfeit would be learning but not ever really producing, force-fitting things into what you're good at. So, always leveraging strengths but never working to improve or develop new competencies. The next behavior is to confront reality. This is really about taking issues head on. It's about discussing even those things that might be quote unquote undiscussable. It's about addressing the tough stuff directly or confronting the reality, but not the person. And I think that's another mistake that's often made, where something difficult or challenging is happening and we end up personalizing that and assigning blame to a person rather than looking at the reality itself. So the opposite behavior is to ignore reality or to be in denial, to avoid conflict and to avoid bringing up those undiscussable items and acting as if they're not real. The counterfeit behavior would be to focus on side issues or symptoms rather than dealing with the real issue. And again, our benefit to our members is to help them deal with root issues and not always addressing symptoms. So make sure that you're consistently driving toward what's the real issue here. What is your true reality, not just what is the effect of what's going on. The next behavior is to clarify expectations. And this is simply about disclosing, revealing, and validating what your expectations are. Don't assume that they're clear or shared, and then if it ever comes up or needs to be willing to renegotiate those expectations as appropriate. The opposite is to leave expectations unclear or undefined, and the counterfeit would be for everybody to be guessing about what those expectations might be, and really not pinning down the specifics for meaningful accountability. So again, helping your members recognize that to be an effective leader and business owner, they really need to clearly define the expectations they have of their team, their employees, and then have appropriate accountability measures in place so that as expectations go unmet, that there's clear accountability in place, and that as people deliver on those expectations, that there's appropriate reward for that as well. But leaving expectations foggy or undefined only leads to confusion and frustration on the business owner's part and in the relationship. All right, the next 4 behaviors are both character and competency behaviors and can apply to both. The first one is to practice accountability. It goes hand in hand with clarifying expectations. Once we've clarified those expectations, making sure accountability is a component of that is really critical. So it's not just about accountability for others. It's holding yourself accountable first and others second. Take responsibility, be clear on how you'll communicate and how you're doing and how others are doing. And first and foremost, don't blame. Accountability is not a blame game. It's not assigning responsibility. It's holding people accountable for what was clearly defined in the expectations. The opposite, obviously, is not taking or not holding people accountable. So if I don't hold myself accountable first, it's impossible for me to hold anybody else accountable. Also, the counterfeit, don't point fingers or blame others. Don't fail to enforce consequences if expectations aren't met. That's probably the most common challenge with accountability, is making sure that when expectations fall short, that there is a consequence, an appropriate consequence for that. Otherwise, accountability will never be able to be established. The next behavior as coaches, this is one of those that's kind of our core. We need to listen first. And that's really just about listening before we speak, listening to understand, diagnose, to listen with our ears, our eyes, and our hearts so that we fully understand what's being communicated. I think what happens most often is we listen until we think we understand, and then we start talking and start telling instead of continuing to listen to really understand. This is something, especially for those that have some I in them, to really, it can be a challenge, because we really want to jump in, especially if people are discussing problems or issues. We really want to step up and help them solve that problem. And so it can be a challenge sometimes to just hold back and listen. The opposite behavior is to speak first and listen last, or not listen at all. I've experienced this. It happens. It's not quite this way, but it's an example of how this can happen. You know, sorry about that. So the example I was going to share is somebody who comes into a new organization, learning new processes, going through training, and the first thing that they want to do is change the process as they're still training. They have ideas for how to make things better, or things that they've done in the past that have worked, and so they're already trying to change the process before they've ever fully learned the process. Applies to listening as well. You know, sometimes we'll get bits and pieces of information, and we'll immediately try to problem solve without really understanding fully what the issue is. So listen first instead of speaking first. The counterfeit is to listen to formulate your response, or to pretend to listen. All right, the next behavior is keeping commitments. I've said this one already a few times as it applies to how you execute these other behaviors. But keeping commitments is simply say what you'll do and then do it. Make your commitments carefully and keep them at all costs. Don't break confidences. That's probably the biggest one in our business. The counterfeit behavior is to make vague, elusive promises that can't be pinned down. So, you know, we see this where you can't really get somebody to make a firm commitment. For those of you that I've coached, you hear me at the end of almost every one of our coaching sessions, what must you do, or what are you going to do before we meet next? That's all I'm trying to do, is get commitments, and trying to clarify them so that we're both on the same page and we know exactly what the commitments are. The opposite behavior is to break those commitments or violate promises. Quickest way to erode trust is to break a promise. And not keep commitments. So keep that in mind as you're working with your members and in the relationships that you have. And then the last behavior is to extend trust. This is sometimes the hardest for us. Other times it's the easiest. Extending trust is really just to give trust abundantly to those who've earned it, and conditionally to those who still need to earn it. But we have to start with a little bit. Some struggle with even giving a little bit of trust to people that they don't know, while others, if they feel like they have a little bit of rapport with you, will give you full trust. We see this in the sales conversation as we're building rapport. You know, we can spend an hour with somebody and they still won't disclose some information. It's because they're not very trusting. They haven't developed enough rapport to be able to extend trust to you. And so the response to that would be to do something to extend trust from your side of the table, you know, to share something that's maybe a little vulnerable or a little private, just to get that ball rolling. The opposite behavior is to withhold trust. If we're not willing to trust, then we shouldn't expect others to trust us. and the counterfeit behavior is to extend false trust or to give responsibility without authority. See this a lot in business. And giving that responsibility, then micromanaging or hovering over, or I think Covey's term is to snoopervise those people that you're working with. So extending trust is really giving, delegating responsibility and giving them the accountability and the authority to actually execute on that. So those are the 13 behaviors that support the 4 cores that operate within each of the 5 waves. And again, this is just an overview. And the plan is that next week during this call, we'll start to talk about how this looks in each one. Things to be thinking about between now and our next call is how do you recognize and appropriately call out counterfeit or opposite behavior when you're trying to build trust in a relationship? How do the behaviors work within each wave so that you can build self-trust, you can build relational trust, you can build organizational trust? How do I operate in a trustworthy manner? What are the behaviors that I'm doing well and where can I get better? And then do my boards operate in a high trust environment? And even beyond that, do my members have organizations that operate in a high trust environment? And how can I support them in growing their business in that direction? So I just want to warn you, Andy, this is not typical. I usually don't go on for 40 minutes talking one way, but I just wanted to lay out the foundation for what the principles are about that make up the concept of the speed of trust, so that we can dig into this a little bit more tactically or actionably next week in our conversation. All right, before we get to the round robin, just a couple of minutes for any quick comments or feedback based on that little speech.
Yep. Ben, could you tell us what the definition of trust is in this method or this approach?
The definition of trust. That's an interesting question, John. Simply put, trust means confidence. The opposite of trust is distrust or suspicion.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or quick comments? All right, let's go on to the round robin discussion question. Again, thanks for listening to all that. Hopefully you found some good information. I've got the graphic, for those that were online, I've got the graphic that has the tree with the 4 cores and the 13 behaviors listed with it that I'll be able to send out to each of you just as a document. There'll actually be 2 pages to that. One is just the summary, and the other one provides a little bit of description to each of those behaviors to help you understand exactly what the intent is behind those behaviors. All right, let's work around the room. I think I see Tanya has joined us. Is that true?
Yes.
All right, good. Very good. So when we work around the room with this, I'll make sure that we get to hear from her as well. So today's round robin discussion question, just fill in the blank, and we might ask a clarifying question, but if you provide enough clarification, then we won't need to. So just let us know, what is the new skill or skills that you would like to develop for your professional or for your personal satisfaction in 2019? So as you look forward, you know, this is a very reflective time of the year for all of us, I think. So as you're thinking forward to 2019, what is a skill, or what are some skills that you would like to develop for your personal or professional satisfaction? And we'll start with, let's see, we'll start with Mr. Krish. I like to start with you on these. Are you there, David?
Yeah, just I had to get myself off mute.
No worries.
Let's see. So, good question. Professional skills. So, so professional skill that I want to develop for the coming year is to substantially increase of revenue, personal revenue. How's that?
Okay.
So, so there you go. That's it in a nutshell.
Sounds good.
Personal income.
Very good. All right. How about you, John?
I think I'd like to build a more consistent coaching methodology.
Okay. Those are big words. Well, it takes me longer to type them. All right. Thanks, John. I think that's awesome. I think that actually is something that will serve you very well if you spend time now developing that. How about you, Mary?
Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to this and had a difficult time coming up with anything. And I know, don't say, I don't think I'm perfect by any means. But I had a difficult time coming up with a skill or skills because, you know, one thing is, I am a high I, by the way, but I am a really good listener, and that's things that I had to work at over the years to become one. I'm a pretty good one now. But I think mine is just to continue to learn, because there's so many things out there, you know, that saying where you go, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And so I like to just continue to listen and learn. Now, I'm not sure that answers this question, but that's the best I can do on that one.
I think that's a fine answer. I think having a focus or a recognition that we need to always be learning, it makes a lot of sense. Very good. Thank you, Mary. How about you, Carlos?
Thanks, Matt. There are so many, but if I choose two, I think it will be number one, make much better questions, you know, learn how all the skills related with questioning.
Okay.
And number two is how to keep things simpler, you know, more simple. Sometimes I think that I tend to overcomplicate things, and that's one key learning area for me.
Excellent. Yep. I think we could all learn to keep things a little simpler than we actually do. How about you, Andy?
I think I'm with John. I'm very interested in improving my coaching methodology knowledge.
Very good. I don't know why methodology is a really hard word for me to type. I'm getting better at it, though. How about you, Chris?
So I'd like to get better at writing, speaking, promoting, and using the tab tools.
Awesome. Love that. I love that. That's great. Thanks very much, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I've got that now written down, so I'll hold you to it.
I wrote it down too, so I will as well.
Awesome. How about you, Valerie?
I really like Carlos's effort to ask more questions, and I don't use the tab tools at all, hardly. So that one's making me feel a little guilty. And my clients just don't seem to be that into the online thing, and I don't know if it's me because I don't push it enough. But definitely I need to ask more questions.
Okay. Very good. Great skill to develop. And how about you, Tanya?
Okay, so I have a lot. Anyway, well, but understand this is what I'd like to. I don't know that I'm necessarily committing to it at this point. Okay.
Okay.
So wasn't that the question? What I'd like to. So I've got a few from a business and kind of personal. But first one is I want to get better at how to implement that with my clients and members. The other one is I want to read more. I realize that's kind of not a skill, but it's the skill is figuring out how to read more improvement books.
Sure.
The other one is this is a personal kind of definition, but it's to become better at finishing the 2%. So I am a great person. I take projects 98% of the way there, and then I pretty much have delivered the project, but there's still administrative things that have to be handled. It's kind of like doing a coaching session, right? And not and delivering value, but then not taking notes and keeping it for you. So I'm really bad at not doing the extra 2% that's generally administrative, and it's a problem throughout my life. So that's something I would like to be better at, and I want to learn how to speak Italian. So there we go.
That's awesome. That ties directly to the other goal of living 6 months out of every year in Italy, right?
Exactly.
Is there anybody else on the call that I haven't heard from or don't have your name? All right, very good. Well, thanks for that. I think these are all excellent opportunities to get better and very appropriate areas of focus for personal and professional development. And I'm really excited to hear these because I think they're phenomenal and really are a testament to the fact that each of you has a commitment to always getting better and finding ways to make your business stronger and healthier. So that's fantastic, and I'm really excited to see how this goes forward. So thanks very much. As you probably see on your clocks, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the call. Again, I apologize that this one was more of me and less of you, and next week it will be definitely more of you and less of me. So be prepared with your comments and ideas around how you can improve or take the concepts of the Speed of Trust into your business and into your relationships with your members. And we'll dig into that conversation next week. Thanks, everybody, for taking time out of your very hectic days. Remember, there's a sprint call this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time if you're available and want to participate in that. And, of course, the membership acquisition call tomorrow will be there as well. And with that, we'll wrap this up. Thanks again. Have a great Thursday afternoon. We'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See y'all.